good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. It's great to be here with you. We started this year with a dream, and that dream was to build a health and wellness community that really starts to think beyond what we've experienced this year and look at how the world will have changed in 2021 as a result of the experience that we've had with COVID. Love it or hate it, this has been a historic year where trends have accelerated in a way never before, that human nature has changed probably in some of the most dramatic ways, and that literally health and wellness in 2021 will be different. Dave, it's been an amazing experience. 9 webinars.
Yeah. You know, Steve, it's funny. People often say things, oh, it's been like a roller coaster. I'm not too sure it's a roller coaster year.
Yeah.
You know, it's more like an express train year because, as you said, you know, a lot of things have impacted our lives and come on again and, you know, hit us in the face. But the other thing is a lot of the trends that you and I were talking about a year ago, just whoosh, you know, just things that we were saying might happen in 5 years or 10 years, bang, it's happened, right? And so it's been really interesting. And then, as you say, we've had this great exploration of doing this series of webinars with some really interesting people covering a lot of areas and learning a lot. I mean, I'm sure you have. I've learned a lot from some of our guests and some of the discussions, but also just the way in which it's plotted along so that as we've had these webinars over the last 6 months or so, we've seen the progression of different things. You know, we've seen some subjects that sort of become more and more important as time goes on, right?
Yeah. No, absolutely. But what it's done actually, it's solidified the view that we hold, which is that the most important medicine, the most important solution are not the pills and the potions that we manufacture and sell. The most important solution is actually the individual themselves, whether you want to call them a consumer, a shopper, a patient, however you want to describe this individual. If that individual is informed, empowered, and most importantly, inspired, they will make the biggest difference to their health and wellness. And all the way through where we talk about, you know, being locked down and families sort of working together and focusing on their health and wellness, that really has been for me one of the biggest learnings, the power of the individual.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter whether or not we were talking about things like, you know, water as one of the big issues of the coming years, or whether we were talking about the way in which people are changing their habits in COVID times, etc. This thing about the individual and empowering, but also, and that's what I found interesting, is the way in which in a number of the sessions we end up getting back to some clues maybe for how marketers have to think about reaching those individuals and inspiring those individuals, right? Informing and inspiring them. So, you know, I had three of the sessions, or there's points in 3 of the sessions that really stood out to me. So the first one would be, to that exact point, was, you know, in the middle of all this, we had a session with Graham and Chris from Hello Health, right? And Graham took us through a customer journey model that they put together, which was one of the best and, in a way, simple, but at the same time detailed customer journeys that I've seen, with a real explanation of the stages. And to your point, what I really liked about it was instantly I could see how you could frame this idea about how you're going to inform people, how you're going to inspire people along that journey. And I think for anybody that's in, you know, anybody that's watched our things, or any of our friends that are into marketing, go back and watch that and look at that model as a very good example of how, especially in the healthcare world, you should be moving along the rails, you know, moving around that journey.
No, indeed, and it reinforced that the customer, the consumer, should always be at the heart of every communication strategy. Often we create communication strategy from the brand outwards, but actually it has to be done centered around the consumer, the patient that you're talking to. And the other interesting thing from that talk with Chris and Graham was that it's to change behaviors. We have to touch emotions and we have to focus on experiences, not just a particular behavioral or what people might be saying. Change.
Yes.
We need to change their experience. We need to change how they feel about it. And that for me was a huge aha moment.
Yeah, very, very good. A great session. I'd really recommend people go and relook at that. There was another point in another session. So we had this great session with Vernon Bradley and Paul McDonald about China. And what really stood out was there's about a 7-minute segment in that discussion, and the whole session was really interesting. But there's a 7-minute or so session where they talk specifically around what's happening with digital and the use of digital in marketing in China. And of course, many of us know that China is well ahead of the rest of the world. But what they were doing was really highlighting how that affects that health business and the health marketing, right? E-health, for example, and the way in which in China we have things happening that still, I think, in most of the world, we sort of see as, oh yeah, that's where we're going to be in a few years' time. Well, no.
Yeah.
In China, it's
now.
Here. And go back and rewatch that, and then think about, putting some effort into understanding what are those platforms, how they're working, and how to literally lift and borrow those ideas, right? Because they just are amazing.
Yeah. No, it's amazing, and it sort of underlines again for me something that's been happening with COVID is this importance of collaborating, to learning from each other. Because we have all of this technology that has been developed in Asia, and China, of course, has been one of the leaders. So instead of trying to reinvent things in our countries, what can we learn from that? How can we make it even bigger, even better? So this element of collaboration, and that really was also brought to life very, very well in the work that you and Trevor Gore did in our third webinar, talking about how important it is not to just, have that not invented here syndrome, but to be really open to work with different groups, different teams, different companies, different governments, indeed, so that you can actually advance much faster and much better to the betterment of your communities.
A really great point. And in fact, just this morning, I was asked by some people about potentially doing a workshop for a company in Japan that's related to the health industry. And I made that exact point, which was if you're going to do a workshop, and they were talking about the pre-read, and I said, look, please don't make the pre-read anything to do with the category you're talking about. Make the pre-read about things that could inspire the category to do stuff differently, right? And I think that's one of the things is, look outside what you're normally doing, look for inspiration elsewhere, and then collaborate with with unlikely partners. If you're a soft drink manufacturer, a soft drink brand, partnering and doing collaborations with a sugar manufacturer, so what? But go and look at collaborations.
Beyond.
Go beyond. Well, where can you get real inspiration from?
Yeah, no, that's really true, because we too often work in our little defined box, defined by the industry, for example, that we work in. And really part of the lesson of 2020 was, in the future, innovation will come from industries and teams outside of your definition.
Right.
That's what's going to make a difference. And it's those organizations that are brave enough to cross the boundaries, destroy the boundaries, and create new definitions. Those are the ones that are going to make a difference.
And to that point, I would raise, we had 2 different sessions around the area of aging populations.
That was fascinating.
one with my good buddy Aki up in Japan, where he was really talking about retirement and the changing nature of retirement, etc. And then the guys from DSM who did a great job in explaining some of the things actually happening really with nutrition and health for the aging population. Yeah. And what's really important about that is, you know, in both cases, we were actually looking at stuff that's actually happening outside of what we normally think about. Because if you take the aging population, most of us have this very strict little box that we think in. And what was interesting, the DSM people, for example, were using great examples of how they were creating new products, you know, supplements, etc., but they were being inspired not by what's happening with the aged, but we really like what else could the aged be doing, right? And so how do we make them healthier so they can do more, sort of thing?
Yeah,
right.
Which is what you and Aki were basically, the message you were giving is that these are not the traditional aging population that we have grown up thinking. This is a new revolution in the way that the over 60s, the over 50s are really thinking about their lives. This retirement, you know, where they're looking for new experiences or third age or life builders. This is the kind of philosophy that they're following. That they are really wanting to do more. And that we as a health and wellness industry can really help. And that was one of the things that Tai Chi and Araksha from DSM really put into perspective, that science really can support the quality of life and help these new life builders to fulfill their ambitions in terms of what they're doing.
And as one new life builder said to me in the last couple of days, and connected with something I'm working on, their destiny. You know, we've got to stop thinking about people over 50 or 60 or 70 as like end of life. It's more like, no, what's your destiny? You know? And he was using it in the terms of like a Marvel comic book, you know, and it's like, oh, I guess I hadn't thought about that too. Like, what is at my age, and obviously I'm now becoming into that life stage, but what's my destiny, you know? And so that's really powerful. That then reminds me of when we think about how we're going to message people going forward. And we had a great session with my old friend, and I'm biased because Jeremy Perot and I.
That was a great session with Jeremy Perot. Great session.
And he and I have a 25-year history, literally as being partners developing campaigns and stuff. But he, you know, his experience over the last 5-10 years working specifically on healthcare messaging, and he's got these 5 strict guides that he talked about in depth, you know, science, empathy, honesty, technology, engagement, right? And he just simplified it down. And again, I would really recommend people to go and have a look at that video. Watch the way in which he explains that, right? And in the core of it, as you said to me yesterday, at the core of it was empathy, right? The other thing sort of makes sense, right? But get the empathy right, and so that the other stuff fits together properly for the individual.
You know, it was one of it brought back what should be very obvious. We spent a lot of time this year, last year, really absorbed as an industry in terms of digital, the media, the channel. And so much was talked about in terms of digital this and digital that. And sometimes we forgot that it doesn't matter that your messages can arrive at an individual at a gazillion miles per hour. If they're not emotional, if they don't connect, if they don't inspire, it doesn't make any difference how fast they arrive or how precisely they arrive. It really underlies the fact that we have to have this empathy with the person that we want to connect with. And we've got to create a message that really grabs their attention. Health is one of these things which is always top of mind, always. Chris and Graham actually had a great statement, which is health is always on. It's one of these sort of campaigns that we can always say is always on. And therefore digital is a great media to get there. But if we don't have that empathy, if we don't have that emotion, if we don't have that inspiration, doesn't matter how you get there. It's just
Yeah.
not going to work.
No, exactly. And so I think, when you think across all of these things, that's what I meant earlier on by when I look across all of the sessions we've done, what's actually happened is that same thing where all this stuff has been hitting us in the face this year because of COVID and the changes. But when we dig deep, there's actually things we knew about, but what we have to be sometimes is reminded about how to bring that alive and how to make that more human or, more individual focused. And if we can do that, then, then you can really reach people.
Yeah, no. And one thing that I picked up also from Stu Lloyd, who joined us, really looking forward now and looking at how we could innovate. First of all, it was a great session because he really made it personal with his own personal journey through healthcare and the healthcare systems in obviously very, very serious issues that he was facing. So it gave a real emotional touch to what he was saying. It was really connecting with us and the audience. But there was something that he really talked about that struck home, that the future is really going to be care at home. We talked a lot about sort of this e-pharmacy, we've talked about e-healthcare, and I believe that really in the future, the hospital at home or care at home concept is going to become even more important. So absolutely, we need to start thinking about how do we give people the ability to do more for their healthcare at home.
Right. And you can see how that circles back to things like the learnings from China about e-health and some of the other sessions about the consumer journey and some of the other things we were talking about, so that these things all start to come together and blend into, we really got to be careful about healthcare and health and our individual health going forward. We're all more aware of that than ever.
Yeah.
But as a brand or as a manufacturer, as a marketer, there's a lot of great lessons from this year about, okay, treat people as people, right? And because they desperately want that humanness to come into it.
Exactly. And really the final session, which was a real eye-opener and a wake-up call for all of us, which is your session with Randall Shannon from Mahidol University here in Thailand, which is really spotlighting the issues that we are facing and we will face even more in the future with water. We mustn't forget that our environment is a huge influence on our healthcare, And actually, not enough water is going to become one of the key issues that we are facing, as I said, and will face even more in the future. That was a real, a bit shocking, actually, I have to say.
Yeah, and I think we're going to see more about that in the coming year. And look, I would put the challenge. I actually, again, the other day I was talking to a potential new client of mine, and somehow the water subject came up, and I referred him to go watch the video. And then he came back to me and he said, so, and I said, well, look at it this way, do the test. Next time you visit a pharmacist, next time you visit your doctor, ask them, how much water should I be drinking? And then they're going to give you a pat answer, right? They're going to give you the whatever number of glasses a day answer. And then you go, but what if I'm taking this pill and this pill and I'm doing this amount of exercise and I'm doing, what is the formula for what is my water intake, my moisture intake?
Wow, it was, it's hard to believe. We're here at the end of 2020, a time where I think a lot of us were wishing this would have come sooner. I remember Burger King actually did a great campaign in their stores starting Christmas, I think sometime in August, because it was like, let's get this year over with. And this year is now coming to a close. And 2021 is upon us. It's going to be around the corner. And of course, we'll be back with the webinars next year, but looking further than 2021, of course. We'll be looking at 2022 and beyond. And we've got some really, really amazing topics lined up that are going to stimulate our thinking so that we can actually start to make changes to our brands and our companies, and so that we can deliver better solutions to our communities. Yeah. So
Looking
Dave,
forward to it.
anything? Yeah.
I'm looking forward to continuing the series. I think, again, it's been great working with you, Steve, and the team on what we've got so far. I really encourage people to go back and rewatch some of these or watch them for the first time. And yeah, as you said, we've got some great subjects coming up over the next 12 months. And, you know, let's just hope that we all have a more comfortable life as things hopefully, I won't say get back to normal, because I don't know. I'm not a big believer in the phrase the new normal.
No,
I just believe
no.
there is just going to be continual change, continual learning, and we just got to all keep up with it.
That's it. So thank you
Thanks
so
very
much.
much.
Yeah, thank you everyone, and Merry Christmas and an amazing 2021. Thank you.
Bye.